Greetings. My name is Chris Allen, the Executive Director of the Lincoln Special. I'd like to take just a few moments here to tell you a little bit more about what the Lincoln Special is and what it is we're trying to do. The Lincoln Special refers to the nickname that was given the Lincoln Funeral Train in 1865. Now, a little bit of housekeeping here. We are not a political organization. We are an IRS-approved nonprofit 501c3. I want to highlight two very important numbers here. 35% of 18 to 29-year-olds. And so what we want to do is lower these numbers and take Lincoln's words and wisdom out of the museums and libraries and take that directly to the people. History that makes you think. And that's what this film, Of Tears and Iron, is meant to do. That's the intention. I fell back on my 30-year career as a filmmaker starting in 1995 all the way up until 2009 with 6 motion pictures. The last 2 films here, you'll see, Time for the Heart, was picked by the San Diego Comic-Con Film Festival to be shown at the 2010 San Diego Comic-Con. The other film, called Quantum Leap, A Leap to Die For, that premiered in Hollywood in 2010 and featured one of the original executive producers of the hit TV show Quantum Leap. So to start with, why a movie? Well, LeVar Burton said it best here with this quote, and this is the single greatest invention mankind has ever come up with to convey thoughts and ideas. You think about the last time you went to your favorite movie in a movie theater. The end credits popped up and you're like, oh, I don't want this movie to end. We do immerse people into the story of Abraham Lincoln's final story of the funeral train that brought the nation together at its most fractured time. We give folks the all-immersive experience of sight and sound, whereas so often it's easy to be distracted at home, or it's too easy to press the pause button or start or something else that lessens or waters down the impact of a story like this. So what we do is we kind of go back to the old school way of showing this to people in a movie theater rather than just going to a streaming device or letting people watch it on a phone. I'd like to share a brief quote from a newspaper that kind of gives you an idea of the impact of this funeral train and what it had on the United States. Let's not forget, Lincoln was killed 6 days after Appomattox, where General Lee surrendered to General Grant. The account of the funeral journey will form one of the most intensely impressive chapters of the history of which some future Macaulay historian will write of the momentous events through which our nation is now passing. It is the manifestation of public grief and popular appreciation which will stand among ordinary observances of the death of a statesman, as would a Bunker Hill monument among the unpretending monuments of a country churchyard. Imagine what that must have been like in 1865, pre-internet, pre-roads, pre-electricity. People coming from hundreds of miles to converge on this rail line. Rainstorms, thunder and lightning, terrible conditions. If you think of it in terms of like a zipper, this funeral train brought the country together at its most divided time. In most recent history, you can point to many situations. Look at when John F. Kennedy was killed, John Lennon, Princess Diana. Look at the massive outpourings of grief that people just come together collectively. The great thing about grief, folks, is that it doesn't matter if you vote red or blue. Here's a quick pop quiz for you. Who said this? When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have to speak up. You have to say something. You have to do something. John Lewis. And John Lewis was the gentleman that I met in 2018, a couple of years before he died. And I had the pleasure to shake that man's hand. And when I met him and I shook his hand, I looked him in the eye and I said, I hope that I am half the man that you are by the time I reach your age. And he was so congenial, so warm and genuine. I didn't know it then, but it was the genesis that became the Lincoln Special. And ours is simply to lower the temperature in society through the power of storytelling. And what we do is we point people to the words and wisdom of a man who led our country through its most divisive time. Imagine a Jenga set. We all know the Jenga sets. So the very bottom 3 bricks of a Jenga set. Now, I want you to imagine taking those bottom 3 bricks out of a Jenga set. What do you think happens? Society comes crumbling down with that. With that, the value of your money, your retirement, civil disorder, chaos, madness, stock markets. I mean, I don't want to preach doom and gloom here, but without the foundation of our democracy, folks, we're in big trouble. What are the chances of a poor kid in any county, anywhere, any state? What are the chances of that poor kid really ever getting to Washington, D.C. or to Springfield, Illinois to visit Lincoln's home? What are the chances, realistically? Folks, there are still a lot of poor kids out there that will never get the chance to know Lincoln, who Lincoln was beyond the face on a $5 bill or the face of a graphic for a President's Day sale on TV. That's it. So that's what we do, is take Lincoln's story to the people that otherwise may never have the chance to know who this great man was. This great man that, in fact, we're talking about 160 years after his death. Here's how we're going to do this. When the film of Tears and Iron is completed, polished with the music and everything, we take this out on a series of road shows that we call. And we start out, our first road show starts in Springfield, Illinois, Lincoln's hometown. And we go to that town, we show this film in a local theater or a local gym, show it free to the public, free. Absolutely free. It's a public service. And let folks come in, see this film, and then afterwards we have a Donahue-style interview with the audience. Ask them what they thought. It's almost like a live focus group right there. We spend a week in each town. You'll see here right along this map. When we're done in Springfield, move to Bloomington, on to Chicago, through Indiana, and then we work our way back to Washington, D.C. We don't have the manpower to visit every town and every little city that the Lincoln funeral train went through. Historically, the train did stop about every 15 to 20 minutes for wood and water. But we're not going to have the manpower to make every stop. But we do have a good combination, big and small towns alike, that we will stop and visit. Here's a quick snapshot of what a road show would typically look like in a small or big town. We'll have the big tent, banner tent. We'll have about 3 or 4 showings of the film a day to accommodate people's schedules. But it's an all-day symposium connecting local residents to their local resources, their local civil rights leaders, their local historians, mental health resources. And at the end of this day-long symposium, we're not just throwing our tent poles up and leaving town. We leave behind an appointed Lincoln ambassador, as we call it. That person will have a copy of the film to continue showing it to schools, churches, or whoever wants to see it, but in a public setting, free of charge, but to continue to empower people and connect people to their local resources. What's the impact of this motion picture and these road shows going to have on the United States? Each year, we're looking at roughly 140,000 people who are impacted by this film. Take this number of 140,000, you put that up against what other brick and mortar places, stationary locations like Springfield, Illinois, the Lincoln Memorial, the birthplace in Hodgenville, Kentucky. You compare that, 140,000, it doesn't pay, it's pale in comparison. But however, the difference is that we take Lincoln to them. So this is going to be a professionally produced motion picture. We're not going to do this as a weekend warrior type project or shoot at nights, weekends. We're not going to do that. This deserves to be made as a full-time endeavor with professionals from all across the country. We all have heard the expression show, not tell, and I took a play out of the George Lucas playbook and hired artists to render scenes from the film, key moments in the film that show what this will look like. I tell folks this is going to have the grandeur of Dances with Wolves, but also the gravitas of Spielberg's Lincoln. So right now we're at the donor procurement stage. What that means is we're raising money to pay a person full-time, not a staff member, but just a temporary person to put this list together of potential donors throughout the United States. It'll take about roughly 6 to 9 months to build this list, and then from there we take this list and move to the next phase of raising the $6.2 million needed to shoot the film, pay everybody, but it's also going to provide us 1 year of marketing costs. That will do 2 road shows for us to get going. The cool thing about this is that as we're doing these road shows, we're going into new pockets of donors throughout the United States. If there's one takeaway that you will have from watching this is please do not conflate the value of our bank account by what's at stake here. The mission here, folks, is priceless. We cannot put a price tag on this. We have to do what we can to preserve our democracy for the next generation. I tell folks it's a lot like giving the keys of your car over to your son or your daughter when they first start driving. You don't want to put them in a car with bald tires and a bad engine and a bad transmission. You're going to give them the best engine and the best car that you can and that you can afford. It's just like that, folks. You know, this is not something that's 4 or 5 years down the road. I'm looking 40 to 50 years down the road. I think Ken Burns said it best. There is no them. There is only us. Look, folks, bottom line, I'm not asking for anyone's hand in marriage here. All I'm asking is for your consideration, for you to help do what you can. Maybe be a connector, board member, or maybe be an advisor, or help us out by giving us a few dollars. But the bottom line is here, folks, this is a public service that has to be done. And I think there is no greater man to point to lead us through this time than the words and wisdom of Abraham Lincoln himself.